I knew walking into that house was a mistake, but it was my son's birthday, and he wanted his grandpa to be there. So there we were, standing at the edge of a living room that used to feel like home, but now just smelled like old secrets and cheap cologne. The walls hadn't changed, but the people had. Or maybe I was finally seeing them clearly. Kai had no idea. He was bouncing with excitement, sugar-fueled joy practically radiating off him, clutching the little thank you cards he'd made for everyone. 7 years old, still believed in kindness, in fairness, in family. God, I wish I still did. He didn't remember the years of silence, the shouting, the way my father once told me I was a stain on the family name after I left my husband. But I remembered. I remembered everything. Still, I forced a smile. Kai. Always for Kai. "Grandpa," he yelled, running across the room with open arms like we hadn't been strangers for years, like my father hadn't looked me dead in the eye once and said, "You were always a disappointment." Douglas, that's my father, didn't even smile. He just nodded once and handed Kai a box, a small one, sloppily wrapped in newspaper. Not gift wrap, newspaper. The comics section, at least, but still, I should have stopped him. I almost did. But something about the way my sister Brenna was watching, smug, arms crossed, glass of red wine already in hand, froze me in place, like I was 7 again, waiting for someone to tell me what I did wrong this time. Kai plopped down on the floor, legs crossed, tearing through the paper with a grin. For a moment, I let myself believe maybe I was overreacting. Then, he stopped. He looked into the box, confused. His little fingers reached in, pulled out a handful of something black and dusty. Coal. Actual dirty pieces of coal. The room went silent. Then my father, no smirk, no sarcasm, just stone-cold flat, said, "Naughty kids get what they deserve." I swear I felt something crack in my chest. Kai's hands trembled. He didn't cry. He didn't throw the box or shout. He just looked up at me with these wide, tear-glassy eyes and asked, "Did I do something bad, Mommy?" It was like time stopped. My throat clenched so tight I couldn't breathe. And then Brenna snorted. Actually snorted. And said through a laugh, "Just like his mother. Useless." That was it. I stood up, heart pounding, ready to grab my son and walk straight out that door, birthday or not. But my dad, calm, like he hadn't just humiliated a child, held up his hand. "It's okay," he said. "I got you a gift too." I turned to him, every muscle in my body screaming to run, but he handed me a plain envelope. "There's something inside I think you should see. Found it in your mother's attic," he said. Figured it was time. I didn't want it. I didn't want a damn thing from that man. But something about the way he said it, the look in his eyes, almost smug, but hollow, made me take it. Inside was a photo. Old, faded, just a photo. But when I saw what was in it, everyone in that room gasped. I don't talk about my past much. Most people who meet me now probably think I'm just a quiet single mom, working 2 jobs, smiling through it all, and maybe I am. But what they don't see, what I never really let them see, is where I came from and why I left. After my divorce, I moved back into the house I grew up in. My mother had passed away a year before, and it sat empty, gathering dust and silence. It was the only place Kai and I could afford. I told myself it was temporary just until I got back on my feet, but something about the house, it pulled me back in. Not the warmth of it that had left with her, but the ghosts. My mother, Ruth, was the only softness in that house. She had this calm to her, like no matter what was happening, she could slow the storm with just a look. My father, Douglas, he was the storm. Former Navy, no nonsense, no excuses, no emotion, unless you count disappointment. I think the last time he hugged me was before I was old enough to remember. He always wanted sons. He got me. And then 3 years later, my sister Brenna, who became everything I wasn't. Loud, opinionated, perfect in his eyes. She got straight A's, won pageants, followed his rules. I didn't. I got pregnant young. Married the wrong man for the wrong reasons. Stayed too long. Left too late. When I showed up at my parents' door 3 years ago, bruised in places that didn't show, holding a toddler and a duffel bag, My father barely looked at me, just said, "You made your bed." I remember standing there, wondering if he even saw his grandson, or if I was still just a stain he couldn't scrub out of his life. Brenna showed up the next day with a bottle of wine and that fake sympathy smile she wore like makeup. She looked at Kai like he was a stray dog. "He's got his father's eyes," she said. That was the first, but not the last, time I wanted to slap her. I stayed in that house just long enough to get on my feet, found work at a local bakery, took night shifts at a gas station on weekends, put Kai in daycare, saved every dollar I could. And once I had enough, I rented a tiny apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Still, I wanted Kai to know family, or at least I wanted him to believe in the idea of it. So every now and then, I let him visit my father. Short visits, supervised, controlled. And to Kai's credit, he loved his grandpa. Kids are like that. They don't see the cracks. They only see the moments you smile. So when his birthday came around and he said, "Can Grandpa come?" I hesitated, but he looked so hopeful, and some part of me, the part that still believed my father had something human left in him, said yes. I even agreed to have the party there. Neutral ground, I told myself, a chance to show them I'd changed, that I wasn't the same scared girl who ran out of this house with a crying baby in her arms. I got Kai a little Lego set he'd been talking about for months, wrapped it in bright paper. He wrote his name in crooked letters on cards for everyone. "I want them to know I love them," he said. That one sentence broke me. Because the truth was, I wanted that too. I just didn't realize how wrong I was until the box of coal hit the floor. The morning of the party, I had this weird, nervous energy. You know that feeling when something isn't quite right, but you can't put your finger on it? That was me. Icing cupcakes at 6 a.m., making sure everything looked perfect, even though I knew deep down that no amount of frosting was going to sweeten what was waiting at my father's house. Kai woke up early, bouncing into the kitchen in his paper crown. "It's my birthday," he shouted like the whole world needed to know, and for a second I let myself forget everything. Just watched him spin in circles, proud and innocent and totally unaware of how much ugliness we'd be walking into. He had no idea how complicated my relationship with Grandpa really was. He didn't know that my father hadn't called me once during the darkest days of my divorce. Didn't know that Brenna told people I was too dramatic when I finally admitted what my ex had done. Kai just saw a grandfather who gave him candy once and let him sit in his recliner like a little king, and I didn't have the heart to take that away from him. We arrived late, on purpose. I didn't want to give them too much time to pick at me before the cake was even cut. The house looked the same as always, too clean, too quiet, like it was trying to hide something. Douglas answered the door, dressed in slacks and a collared shirt like it was a business meeting. He nodded at me but didn't smile. "You're late," he said before turning and walking back inside. Brenna was already there, of course. She was wearing something designer, probably just to show she still had money. Her smirk was fully loaded before I even stepped into the room. "Elira," she said with a tone that made my skin crawl, "brave of you to show up." I ignored her. I wasn't going to let her win today. Not on Kai's birthday. The guests were mostly a few old neighbors and some of Brenna's friends. People who barely knew Kai but came for the cake or the gossip. He didn't seem to mind. He was glowing, handing out his thank you cards, beaming at every adult who leaned down to talk to him. I sat on the edge of the couch, clutching my purse like it was a lifeline, just counting the minutes until we could leave. Then it was time for gifts. Kai sat on the floor, surrounded by shiny bags and boxes. He opened a couple of toys, a book, even a weird electronic globe from Brenna that I'm sure she didn't pick herself. And then my father cleared his throat. He walked over, handed Kai a small square box wrapped in newspaper. "This one's from me," he said. I froze. Kai looked up at him with a smile. "Thank you, Grandpa." He tore through the paper, excited, laughing, until he saw what was inside. Coal. He pulled out a chunk of it, his fingers smudged with black dust. His face twisted in confusion. "What is it?" Douglas didn't blink, didn't flinch, just said, "Naughty kids get what they deserve." Everything in me, every scar I'd ever buried, snapped wide open. Kai blinked fast. "But I was good." My heart shattered. I could feel the room watching, waiting for my reaction like this was entertainment. Brenna let out a snort laugh. "Just like his mother," she said. "Useless." I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to grab Kai and run. But I didn't want him to see me break. Not on his birthday. Not again. And then, just when I was about to speak, my father said, like nothing had happened, "It's okay. I got you a gift too." The room was still, like everyone was holding their breath. I stared at my father's hand, the one holding that plain white envelope. And for a moment, I honestly didn't know whether to take it or slap it out of his fingers. I could still hear Kai breathing next to me, short little gasps, like he was trying not to cry. And I hated that he was learning this lesson, that love can be cruel, from the people who were supposed to protect him. I took the envelope, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. I needed to understand why he'd do this, why this moment, a child's birthday, was his chosen battlefield. I needed to know if there was any humanity left in him, or if I was truly standing across from a man who felt nothing for me, or for my son. Inside the envelope was a photo, old, faded, edges yellowed. I could feel everyone watching me as I pulled it out, but when my eyes landed on it, the world around me blurred. It was a hospital photo, one of those grainy Polaroid types. My mother, younger than I ever remember her being, lay in a hospital bed holding a newborn baby. Me. But beside her was not my father. The man in the photo had softer eyes, a wide, gentle smile. His hand was wrapped around my mother's as she held me, and the way he looked at her, it was love. It was obvious, undeniable. On the back of the photo, written in my mother's careful, looping handwriting, "Illyra, born from love, always remember that." My hands started to shake. "What is this?" I whispered. Douglas folded his arms, his face unreadable. "Your mother had her secrets. Figured it was time you saw one of them." My heart slammed against my ribs. "You're saying he's not you?" I asked. He didn't answer. Brenna laughed nervously. "What is this, a joke?" Douglas looked straight at me. "You were never mine." My breath caught in my throat. Suddenly, everything made sense. The way he looked at me growing up, the coldness, the resentment, the impossible standards, the feeling I never belonged, because I didn't, at least not to him. "You knew?" I asked. "All these years?" His jaw clenched. "Your mother told me the truth the day she died. She wanted me to forgive you. I told her there was nothing to forgive, that you were never mine to begin with." I stood there, stunned, not because of the photo, but because in that moment I realized something else. He didn't hate me because I failed. He hated me because I existed. And suddenly, everything inside me that had ever begged for his approval, everything that still craved even a shred of love from him, burned away. I turned to Kai, who was sitting quietly on the floor, hugging his knees. And I made a choice. Maybe the first real free choice I'd ever made. I kneeled beside him, wiped the dust from his hands, and said softly, "You didn't do anything wrong. You are not what they say. You are good. You are so good." His lip trembled. "Then why did he give me coal?" "Because he's wrong," I whispered. "And we're done letting wrong people tell us who we are." Then I stood, looked my father in the eyes, and said, "I may not be your daughter by blood, but I was a child in your house. And you chose cruelty, over and over again. So this ends today." I picked up Kai, grabbed our coats, and walked toward the door. And just before I stepped out, I turned one last time and said, "That man in the photo? He may not be here now, but he loved me, and I will never let my son wonder if he's loved." The front door was in sight. My hand was on the knob. Kai's arms were wrapped tight around my neck, his little body still tense, his face pressed into my shoulder like he was trying to disappear. I should have kept walking, but I didn't. Something in me, not out of pride, not out of pettiness, but out of clarity, made me stop and turn back. The room had fallen into an uncomfortable quiet. My father stood like a statue, arms crossed. Brenna sat stiffly on the armrest of the couch, chewing the inside of her cheek like she was trying to process what had just happened. I held up the photo. My voice didn't shake. "You know what the real difference is between you and the man in this picture?" I asked. Douglas didn't answer. This man, whoever he was, he showed love in a single frame. He didn't have to be angry. He didn't have to prove anything. He just held her hand and smiled. And that one picture says more about who I am than anything you ever gave me. Still, nothing. So I kept going. I used to lie awake wondering why I was never enough for you. Why no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't break through whatever wall you built between us. But now I get it. I was never broken. You were. And instead of healing, you passed that pain on. Over and over, I looked down at Kai. His eyes were wide, but he was watching, really watching. And I realized he wasn't just learning what family wasn't. He was learning what standing up for yourself looked like. You gave my son Cole, I said, shaking my head, on his birthday, because somehow, in your twisted logic, that was discipline. But let me tell you something. What you call discipline, I call emotional abuse, and it ends here. I placed the photo gently on the table, like it deserved better than to be in his hands. Brenna finally spoke. This is insane. You're blowing everything out of proportion. You don't even know who that man is. He could be... I don't care who he was, I interrupted. I don't care if he disappeared the day I was born. What matters is, in one photo, he showed more humanity than I've seen in this house in 30 years. Then I turned to my sister. And you, I said. You laughed when your nephew was humiliated, like that was normal, like it was a punchline. You might think you're above all this, Brenna, but you're just another branch on a dying tree. Her mouth dropped open, and for once, she didn't have a comeback. I adjusted Kai on my hip and looked back at the room one last time. You want to talk about who's useless? Try living your whole life with a heart made of stone and a legacy of silence. I may have fallen, I may have failed, but I never stopped feeling. And that's why I'll never be like you. With that, I opened the door. The cold air hit us like a reset button. As I stepped out, I felt lighter, not just because I was walking away, but because for the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying their shame anymore. I wasn't broken, I wasn't less than, and neither was my son. We were free. 6 months later, I still keep the photo. It's framed now. Simple wood, no glass, just something warm that fits the feeling it gives me. It sits on the shelf above Kai's bed, right next to the nightlight and the stuffed elephant he refuses to sleep without. He asked me once, "Is that my other grandpa?" I told him the truth. I didn't know his name, but I knew one thing for sure. He loved me. And that love helped me love you better. Kai just nodded and said, "Then I love him too." And that was enough. After we left my father's house that day, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or fall apart. I just sat in the car, holding my son's hand while he finished the cupcake I'd saved for him in the glove box. Because no one even brought out the cake. "Best birthday ever," he mumbled through blue frosting, smiling at me like nothing could break him. Kids are like that, resilient in a way adults forget how to be. But I didn't want him to have to be resilient. I wanted him to be safe. So I cut off all contact. No more texts, no awkward holidays, no, "but he's still your father" guilt. Just peace. And the wildest part? Once I stopped trying to force the people who hurt me to see me, I started seeing myself more clearly than I ever had. I started therapy, real therapy, not the quick fix kind, the messy, honest, dig through the dirt kind. I unpacked everything. The way my father's silence shaped my self-worth, the way Brenna's cruelty mirrored my own inner voice, the way I kept giving chances to people who only handed back disappointment. And somewhere in all that, I stopped blaming myself. I realized I was never the broken one. I was just raised in a place that called love weakness and shame discipline. But I had broken the cycle. I had drawn a line in the sand, and I had chosen my son, chosen us, over the illusion of family. Kai flourished. He started drawing pictures of superheroes with glasses and moms with capes. He told his teacher I was the bravest girl in the world. And for the first time since leaving my marriage, I started to believe I might actually be strong. One night, as I was tucking him in, he asked, "Are you happy now?" I paused, not because I didn't know the answer, but because it meant something that he asked. "I'm getting there," I said. And it was the truth. We may not have big birthday parties or grandparents who send cards, but we have Sunday pancakes and homemade forts and bedtime stories whispered under the covers. We have laughter in a house that once only knew silence. We have each other. And as for the photo, it's not just proof of a man I never met. It's proof that I was wanted, that I came from love, and that love survived, even if it had to skip a generation to come alive again. So if you're out there, someone like me, trying to make sense of pain that's been handed down like an heirloom, hear me when I say this. You are not your father's cruelty. You are not your sister's bitterness. You are not what they said about you when they thought you weren't listening. You are allowed to outgrow your roots, and you're allowed to build something better from the ashes. Sometimes the greatest gift doesn't come in a box. Sometimes it comes in the form of freedom. And sometimes it comes in the form of a photo that finally tells the truth. If this story hit home for you, if you've ever felt out of place in your own family, or like you were carrying pain that wasn't yours to carry, I want you to know you're not alone. We don't get to choose the family we're born into, but we do get to choose the kind of legacy we leave behind. And that choice? It's more powerful than we're ever taught to believe. So whether you're healing from your past, protecting your peace, or just trying to raise the next generation better than the last, you're already doing something incredible. If this story moved you, helped you reflect, or just made you feel seen, I'd love it if you gave it a thumbs up, shared it with someone who might need it, and dropped a comment below. Tell me your story. I read them all. And if you want more true, raw stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because we're building something honest here, together. Thank you for watching. And remember, your story matters.